5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pencil to pencil, our go. Welcome back, you guys. When you see, you get ready for it, these 3 smiling angelic countenances, you must know that some things are true. Once again, 1, it must be Wednesday, 8 p.m. EST, somewhere in this hemisphere. 2, it must be time for your magical mystery tour of pinching yourself and dreaming. Or you're not dreaming. Is this real? What's this IRL?
No, it is a dream.
It is a dream. You're getting sleepy. It's a dream. And third thing is that you're once again joined by your 3 expert cartoonists. Guys, it's pencil to pencil time. Welcome back to the show. We're very happy to bring it to you once again. Let's do some introductions. I am your first co-host. My name is Jamar Nicholas. I wear many hats besides this one. I am on the board of the National Cartoonist Society and also the Philadelphia chapter chair. This summer in Columbus, Ohio, is the 80th anniversary of the NCS. The Reuben Awards and Conference will be happening. You do not have to be a member to go, but you gotta buy a ticket. So don't delay, don't dilly dally. There will be a cavalcade of stars. You should go check it out. Also, I have a chapter book. No, I don't. I have a middle grade chapter. Man, I can't talk all of a sudden. Hold on. I have a middle grade graphic novel series. Yes, at Scholastic Graphics. Leon and the Big Problem is my new book. It'll be out January 2027.
You should show a preview of the cover.
You know what? I don't have it keyed up here. I'm going to do it tonight. You keep saying that. I keep going, yes, but I keep forgetting to add the graphic. That'll be out at the beginning of next year. Steve Conley, what should they do?
Cop it, why don't you?
Thank you, yes.
And where canst they cop it?
Are you
be copped?
Steve, one of the best things I ever got to say in my life, wherever books are sold.
The pre-orders are available now over on my bookshop.
Bookshop.org. You can go to Bezos. You can go to Target. You can go to Wally World. But I suggest you go to your neighborhood independent bookseller and say, "Yo, I need that new Leon," and they'll go, "Oh, there it is." Pre-order it and keep small business in business. Thank you. But I would be remiss if I did not introduce my co-host, cohort, and co-conspirator. You know him because you always drive by him on your way to work because he's walking up the side of the internet superhighway with the melodic tinkle at his back. That's Mike's favorite part. Welcome your friend of mine. By God, it must be Stone Cold Steve Conley.
Gentlemen, it's so good to see you. I feel like I need to spend about 5 minutes here explaining what the melodic tinkle means to anyone under the age of 45.
Please do. Let's do. Are we limiting our audience by?
You should pull that up on YouTube.
You gotta watch what was it, the 70s? It was in the 70s. The Incredible Hulk with Bill Bixby and your Lou Ferrigno's. It is amazing. It is cheesy. The first one is like an hour and a half, 2 hours. It is cheesy 70s TV, but man, do the actors sell it. It is so good. I recommend it highly. But that's where you get your straight melodic tinkle right into your veins. But my name is Steve Conley. I am your source for 1970s television knowledge, and I create comics including The Middle Age, which you can read at middleagecomic.com. It is currently nominated for Best Online Comic Long Form in the Division Awards for the National Cartoonist Society. Not to be confused with a Reuben, which I believe is mutton, lettuce, and tomato, where the mutton's nice and lean.
You're out of here. You're revoked.
And I also make TTRPG content. So if you check out Stabracadabra, it's the latest one, as well as wildestshape.com, you can pre-order my next books. But I would be remiss if I'd introduce the Tower of Power, the Man of the Hour, Too Sweet to Be Sour, the Maestro of Mark Making, Dark Hawk's Daddy. He drew your childhood. And like 7 comic strips earlier today, he's Mr. Mike Manley.
Oh,
I drew this guy today.
Hold on, let me give you the screen. What? Oh, wow.
Yeah, this is actually right when I started the strip. They reprint this is from Australia, so they bought a drawing I did and used that on the back cover of the
wow. Well, Sunshine picked that up. Yeah.
So this is several years old. What was neat is they reprint a bunch of the historical stuff, which actually comes in I use this all the time because I'm always having to look up stuff.
Wow. So it's your own reference, right?
I was just remarking to Tony today that literally every week this strip is reference. It's always reference, because it's an old strip. So there's almost 90 years of reference on the strip. So like every week I got to go look up something that some previous artist drew. Like today I was looking, or this week I was looking at something that from 12 or 13, maybe even more years ago. So it's you're always looking at old stuff, and then you have the other thing you have to do is you have to try to retcon stuff because it wasn't always drawn consistently, because artists all have different styles, and so one person may draw this guy, and even Dan Barry had people penciling the strip, helping him out at times, penciling the strip. So, and nobody in the old days really paid attention. It's like in comic books, people know in issue 39, when Romita replaced Ditko, when he drew this guy, the webs are going this way. Now the webs are going this way. In fact, I was looking at a Kirby cover for some early Marvel. It had Spider-Man on it. And he always kind of drew Spider-Man different. Like he was not good at drawing like the weird gangly guy.
Like the Ditko-y, like buggy.
He was not good at drawing that kind of stuff. Yeah, so hold on a second. My mom
he always drew them very sinewy in a weird way. Like they kind of look like beef jerky. They had very flat.
But
Perfect
the
for
thing
like,
I noticed was that, the webs go like a U, right? Down or up. But he drew them all going
Oh,
down.
like down. So it wasn't
So like
like
early
you,
on.
right.
Yeah, early on, people
You
didn't
know what this means, right?
Yeah. So
Right.
I remember looking at that and I was like, wow, those webs are really like, because nobody had. Did they send him a Xerox? Did they send him a stat? Did he see an issue? I mean, now we all have everything, everywhere, all the time, all at once. Anything that's been printed in Marvel or DC or any, especially from probably the 50s on,
Hmm.
they have everything, right? But back then, you didn't. So when I will go through and I'll look at this magazine, right? I look at like, well, I'm drawing Diana, and if you're going to draw Diana to look like the classical Diana, you're drawing that kind of that girl kind of 60s hairdo. And if you don't draw if you give her a modern hairdo, which realistically you probably should, it doesn't look like the classic character, right? Like all the classic superheroes all have that kind of like standard superhero hair, right? But today nobody would be
the Ronald Reagan.
Or they would have, they would have, what do they call it? The alpaca, where the kids get all their hair like kind of bunched up in the front, like the young guys do, right? That boy band hairdo. So, but if you drew
like this one?
if you drew that, or the anime was like clean going over one eye, they don't even draw the anime characters the same way. I was showing somebody Captain Harlock because they had not seen that.
Jeez,
right?
That's a rough cut.
Yeah, you look at that early 80s anime where everybody had that gling, that swoop of hair, which I guess probably came from Otomo. I mean, not Otomo, Tezuka, because he gave the bad guys always had that sweep of hair going over the eye, the peekaboo eye.
Like the Burakuchiku.
Yeah.
Kind of like that.
Yeah. And that was like really all over like early anime. You would see that. And manga, everybody, the bad guy would always, or the cool guy always had the peekaboo. The anime version of the McGarrett from Hawaii Five-0 with that big that hoop of hair.
Oh, that's so funny. Mike, our good buddy, comic fan who walks, says, I love how contemporary cool all the characters are in your Judge strip. And also, Mike, especially guest cameo by Jamar Nicholas. That you just put in your Facebook.
We were really stretching all credibility, that was really just getting the rights for Jamar.
You gotta talk to my agent.
Yeah, that was quite a difficult negotiation. Yeah, that was fun. I think what I did is I used photos from your Facebook probably to help.
And that's fine. I
had pics too of you from when we hung out and stuff. So
yeah, I don't even. I hate to say I don't look like that anymore, but that's like a whole other.
That was the young buck Jamar.
That was young Poobah. Yeah.
Now I'm gonna draw you like old man Maz, right? The gray,
You really do, yeah. I'm like Gandalf the White now. Yeah. What up, Super D? Read Rosebuds in your local paper. Super D says, congrats on your Reuben nominee, Mr. Conley. Look at you getting low. Guys, let's get this show started, why don't we? Guys, you know what? You are in for a treat tonight because your three expert cartoonists are kind of taking a break from, we gave you months months plural, of dope art podcasts and dope interview podcasts. And we're gonna not pump the brakes a little bit, but just just kind of ease into the evening with as a cartoonist. Right. So, one first before we get started, I have to say that I love that we're at a point in this live stream's life cycle that we have stuff just loaded and ready to go. Right. I love Draw and Jaw. I found out that a lot of our audience really enjoys the very unique cadence we bring to YouTube with expert cartoonist knowledge and also drawing live in front of you. It's not one or the other, it's both. And also, got to give a shout out to Steve Rude, who we had on last week, our first guest Scooby Doo mystery
Yeah,
celebrity on Draw and Shaw.
we crossed this. We crossed the stream.
We did cross the streams. That was a lot of fun. But tonight, you guys, we're just going to answer your viewer questions. So this isn't the time to be shy. If you ever had a question you'd like to ask, or if you even like to kind of talk about where the channel's been going over the last couple of years or anything, please put it into the chat. Also, I behoove you to like and subscribe and hit that alert bell when you will get notified for when we go live next. And let's just start populating the chat with some questions, and your buddies are going to just get a nice conversation going. Thank you very much. So yeah, that is funny, Mike. Especially like kind of like your maybe earlier foray into the judge, where you were really trying a lot of things out, right? It was just kind of like, let me see what fits. You're like almost like putting on coats as you were drawing the strip. Like, I don't know, how do I like this? I like this. Can you maybe talk about that post you just put out about
No,
kind of
let me. I'm actually going to show you guys something here. So
breaking down the actors from the judge?
So here is.
Steve, can you grab this? I don't see anything.
Yep, I'm keeping an eye out for. Oh, there we are.
Okay, so here's an early judge from like the first year. Like I said in my post on Facebook, I took over after Ed Barretto. Ed Barretto was doing it after Harold Ledoux, the guy who'd been doing it since the 50s. And he retired, and they had Ed Barretto come on. And then Barretto, and then I think Barretto got sick initially. And I'm trying to remember, I think he got in a car crash or something, so they needed somebody to fill in. And since I had already worked for King Features a few years before doing an adaptation of Al Williamson's Secret Agent Corrigan, because there used to be a magazine in Scandinavia called X9 where they would print Al stuff and Modesty Blaze and something else. And they were doing a new story. So I was recommended to them. And I got to know the old editor, Brendan Burford. And then when they needed somebody to do a fill-in to help Barretto, he thought of me. So I started out, but I had to sort of imitate. In fact, let me bring up another one here. I'll do this one after. You can see.
I do want to remind folks that Steve Rude was kindly on here last week with Janelle, and they were fantastic. And their Kickstarter goes for another 8 days. So if you check out steverude.com/ThoonWorldAE, ThoonWorld like Artist Edition, you can get to the Kickstarter that way, or go to Kickstarter and type in Steve Rude Nexus ThoonWorld. You can get right there. Oh, and there we go. Thanks, Jamar.
Can you see this?
You put it up now. There it is.
Okay, so this is very early on, and I was told to sort of try to imitate Barretto's style. So
that's interesting.
Down low, yeah, because again, like I explained in my Facebook post, the comic strip business is very different than the comic book business. In the comic book business, you always have different artists on some books, right? You were always having fill-in issues. You go from having, Ditko to Ramita to Buscema, or the Buscemas to Gil Kane to Ross Andrew to Mike Wieringo to Todd McFarlane, on and on and on and on and on, right? We're used to that. But in comic strips, it's like there's Barney Google, and he's always drawn by this person. There's Prince Valiant. It was drawn by 2 people, right? Or now 3, right? It was drawn by Harold Foster. Then when he retired, John Cullen Murphy, and now it's Tom Yates. And that's a real big deal because people in the newspapers are very finicky about somebody changing the artist. And usually when you change, especially like in let's say the Bigfoot, like if you're drawing Blondie, it always looks like Blondie no matter who draws it. Mm-hmm. Right? If you're very inside baseball, you can tell one artist from another. But many strips, as Jamar, I'm sure, can probably give you a list of strips where the father drew it and then he retired and then the son drew it. Mm-hmm. Or like on Garfield. How many people have probably drawn Garfield besides Jim Davis?
Right.
Right. So since it was only temporary, I was sort of told to try to imitate Barreto, who also sort of had to imitate Harold Ledoux, the guy before him. So this is me early on. And I would do a layout. And then that's the pencils. And then, let's see here. And then I have the colors here. So what I would do is when I first started, I would lay everything out. Then I would transfer that on a light box. And then I would ink it. So I'm trying to draw Sam and Abby in the style that Barreto was doing. But one of the things I noticed is his style was not very consistent because he had a studio helping him. And I think what happened was he would kind of lay it out and then somebody else would pencil it and then he would ink it. I think his son, Diego, was working on it for a while. But anyway, that was the gig. Start out, do it like Barreto, and then after, unfortunately, Eduardo passed away, I kept doing the strip, and then let's see, I'll get the other one up here. So I had to start out doing my own. Then I could move towards me doing it in my style, which I couldn't do at first. They wanted it to sort of, in fact, I couldn't even sign my name to it.
Oh, wow.
Right? Eventually I could sign my name to it, but when I first started, so this, let me go back to my window here. So after Eduardo had passed away, I was allowed to sort of basically start to move to my own style.
Rendering.
Right. And so that was, and again, you can see it was on a pad of paper. So I would lay it out and then transfer that, pencil it, and then there's the final ink and color. So, and this is somewhere between, this is very early on. So this is like 16 years ago. It's incredible for me to say that. And, the girls were much younger, right? And that's the other weird thing about comic strips because these characters appeared in 1983 and they were teenagers. Like Sophie was like probably 9 or 10 maybe. And Nettie, her sister, was a couple of years older. So they'd be 40 now. You know, they'd be having kids. You know, so the artist passed away. The original writer Woody Wilson, who I was working with, he left the strip. Francesco came on to the strip, the new writer, and then decided that we're going to start aging. Time is going to start working more realistic. So it's kind of that way because now Sophie went through high school and now she's gone through college and she's been out of college a while and now is living in Europe. This just gives people the idea of like, you know, got to work out your storytelling. Now I don't do this now. I just draw it straight. In Clip Studio. I pencil it out. But in the beginning, I was sort of really feeling my way. And I was not working digitally. This is all, you know, the old-fashioned pen and ink and paper. So I was just really trying to work on the storytelling. And I, you know, fitting in my balloons and getting a feel for the amount of writing. And Woody was more sparse than Francesco. Francesco writes more dialogue than Woody. So that affects my real estate and how I have to break up the panel flow. And the one thing that's still consistent is that the top tier can be eliminated. Some papers don't run that on the Sunday. The two middle panels always have to be the same, but I can change the shape of the bottom tier. So, and there's a group on Facebook that runs old comic strips. And they run old Judge Parkers, which is interesting because you see the old Judge Parker actually had way more panels very often than we had. So it was much heavier, was more happened in the strip. And one of the things that changed between me working with Woody and Francesco on the dailies is they decided to go to basically just 2 panels a week, of 2 panels a day, because the readers today are very impatient.
And Mike, are you working from full scripts?
Yes, they're all full scripts. So, you know, that's again why you could see me indicating the panel.
That's great.
The balloon placement. So that's actually the first thing I do is do the balloon placement. You know, rough it in. And then I go, okay, this is how much room I have to play with. So DC Batman, I had full scripts. At Darkhawk and Marvel or anything I did in Marvel was always a plot. So, which I prefer. I prefer a plot for the superhero stuff because then you can choreograph the action and the layout much better. But DC was much more like the old DC. Everybody got full scripts. And I think some of the old timers felt like if you give me a plot, I got to do extra work. So I should get paid more.
Right.
You know, I think guys like Alex Toth liked a full script because he also lettered his own comics. So
that's great.
We have some questions, Mike, and thank you for that insider look into your process. It still boggles my mind that you've been on that strip for so long.
I know. I've done more of Judge Parker than anything else combined.
Wow.
That's wild. So with that, we have a couple of questions. Uh, our first question is from Comic Fan Who Walks. Slam Evil, Slam Pencils. Someone wants to integrate digital art into their daily practice without losing that traditional feel. What device would you recommend starting with right now? Let's start with Steve. Steve, what do you think for somebody that wants to get into digital now?
I like a tablet. I really like the iPad. Um, it's responsive. There's not that much space between the tip of the stylus and the line you create.
Mhm.
That little distance can feel a little awkward. There's enough settings to adjust where you can actually have the feel. I mean, all digital tools are desperately pretending to be traditional tools. Um, uh, but I think the iPad does a pretty good job of replicating the effects I'm going for. It's a far cry from traditional, but I think it does a pretty good approximation.
I have an interesting question for the both of you, and this is interesting because I know Mike's digital journey is different than Steve's, which is also different from mine. Now, what about now we're in a period of time where everybody just has a Cintiq, right? Or some sort of digitizer tablet where your tool is hitting the screen and you're seeing the results, like you're drawing on a, like surface to like pin to surface. Now we're forgetting about that first step, the Intuos tablet. Remember those? It was
I
just
still
like
have my old one in the other room.
right.
Sure.
It's just
G5.
that slate where it's just a gray slate, and you kind of have to like no look past your way through your artwork. And it's a totally different relationship between what you're doing and what your
You're
hand
drawing here and you're looking here. You're not
Mhm.
looking at your hand.
Apparently, Brian Boland still works that way.
right. I wonder, and maybe to both of you guys, do you think that's a good middle step before going from paper right to a Cintiq? Should you have that moment where you have to figure out your eye-hand coordination with the Intuos, or is that draconian to put something like
Yeah.
that? You don't think that's necessary?
No, I mean, we had no choice.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think so. It's like going further back, I was drawing everything with a mouse. So,
Right.
like drawing with a bar
Which
of soap
supposedly Adam
over
Hughes.
here. Yeah.
Yeah,
Was
Adam
that
Hughes. Supposedly Adam Hughes is still using a mouse. Used a mouse.
So, yeah, no, I don't think so. I think the idea of for approximating realistic tools. I mean, I even like that there's some pen holders or stylus holders that emulate the shapes of other traditional tools to kind of help create that same grip. But I do think the larger Cintiq does offer more options for drawing with your whole arm. The iPad doesn't so much.
Yeah.
You can't quite. It's nice to be able to pinch and zoom, and I find myself when I do traditional sketches, I find myself pinching and zooming and tapping and swiping. But the idea of rotating the surface, I feel like the Cintiq gives you more of that feel than the iPad does. So the whole idea of just like when you're drawing a straight line or trying to get that curve just right, you really want to do it with your whole arm, and an iPad doesn't quite.
You fall off.
It doesn't have enough surface area, frankly.
How about this? Because I'm really riding off of this question. What about the size? Does size matter, gentlemen? When we're talking about your digital device, do you need like a 27-inch Cintiq to do your job, or a 10? Pause. Like, does it like what I'm saying? Like, is because that I think that's very confusing to people who feel like they need to buy the biggest one that they can afford.
It is. It's how you use it, but it's often if you're going to use those things are generally there are some Cintiqs that are tablets, but if it's going to be an external monitor to your device, the programs are designed for the icons to be a certain size, and if you use too small a monitor, too small a Cintiq, those icons can become very small. And so it's a usability issue with certain screen sizes. The very small Cintiq, fine if you don't need much surface area for palettes and things like that.
Yeah, I was just trying to learn to use a Harmony,
Mm.
and it was difficult because I have my tablet, but I'm also looking at my monitor, and Harmony is really complicated. There's a billion things on there on their window, right? There's all these little, and you got to go over here and click this little thing, and over here between these two things, you see that thing? You got to slide that thing. Oh my God, it was driving me nuts with my 64-year-old eyeballs, right? And so I was trying to adjust because again, you only have so much real estate. If you blow this up, you shrink something else.
Right.
You blow your palettes up so that you can actually easily see the palette, then your drawing space is too small. So what you would almost really need is you would need two big screens, and all your palettes go on one screen, and your drawing is on another screen. And I mean, that's just a hazard of working digital.
Yeah.
I like it for I love the drawing in Clip Studio, but I think the only reason why it works for me is because I had 30 something years of drawing in the real world. And so I bring all my muscle memory, because one of the things I don't like about it is if you ink everything in Clip and or any of those programs, it tends to make everything look the same. It tends to make the lines too perfect, which might work great in animation and maybe some certain styles, but I like a little tooth. I like a little grit. I know that, I come from the world where the difference between pen points makes a big difference in the final look of your artwork.
Right.
And you have to work hard to engineer that.
Yeah.
Digitally. It is not something that automatically happens. But again, I'm old, right? Now, somebody who's 15 and is coming up, they're not even thinking about they don't even care about line quality. They're not even thinking about, well, I want something to look, like a 1940s dry brush feel, or they're not into it in that way. So that's the thing about the world we live in now. You can still work traditionally, but you can work digitally. But I answered this question for somebody the other day, was that it basically comes down to what the client wants. As long as you can give it to the client the way the client wants it, it doesn't really matter, right? But every client wants it delivered digitally. Nobody wants your original. Everybody wants you to put it in this little server, or put this up in this little thing and put it in this little document or whatever. That's the way publishing works, right? So as long as you can deliver it. I do, however, think that risk is part of learning. And when I learned, if you fucked it up, you had to start over, and there was no Command Z, right? If you were inking something and you blobbed something, oh shit.
Right.
If you had to really learn how to use a pen, you had to learn how to use the pen, and if you messed it up, you had to try again. I do think that stunts people's growth, because part of learning is falling down. Part of learning is risk. Part of learning is making a mistake. And that old adage, 10,000 hours. I mean, I probably did 10,000 drawings from the time I was like 12 or 13 and said I wanted to be a cartoonist until I was earning my living at 23. I mean, how many sketchbooks and sheets of paper and, just practicing inking stuff. I used to literally do that. I would when they started doing those treasury editions, especially, you could see that closer to the original size. I would practice inking like Joe Sinnott or Dick Giordano or Klaus Janson, and I figured, well, how how are they making their, oh, this is a pen line. I can tell that's a pen line. What kind of pen? Oh, this pen looks kind of like that line.
Wow.
Art nerd.
Yeah,
love
I was totally into it on that like macro level, trying to figure out what pen these people were using. Never having seen an actual, I don't think I had seen any original art for several years. I was probably like 17 before I went to a show where I actually saw like an original. There was no internet. And if you saw a book with a reproduction, it's like dinky, so you don't get to see the the blue pencil or the whiteout or all that stuff is like a real learning curve. So I don't think, but I came from that world, so I had no choice.
Guys, I had, here's my answer. I think this is where every young artist should start. I think we should start with the Magic Slate paper saver toy. This was our iPad in the 70s, y'all.
That's right. Or the Etch-a-Sketch.
That's right. It's only $30, y'all. The stylus is missing.
Oh, well, so you could use a pencil, or you could use use a fork. You could use whatever you wanted.
Your fingernail.
Fingernail, right?
Look, there's Benji with some hot legs in his mouth. How 70s is that? That's fantastic.
And eventually, that wax thing got like divots in it, so you would draw, and there'd be like uneven slate underneath.
Yeah, y'all don't know about that. All right, let's get back to some more questions. Oh, wait, hold on. Along the line, because our chat is lousy with cartoonists. People are in here trading war stories. This is interesting. Danny Boy Belts, what up, Danny Boy? Says, I recently did an 8-page story digitally where I limited myself to not use undo and other shortcuts. Instead, changing the brush color to white to erase. It was probably the best practice I've gotten. Wow, that's really interesting. Good job. All right, let's go to, we've been starring some of these questions. I'm just gonna keep it moving. Our good buddy Stephen Payton. Hello, Stephen. Stephen is a superhuman being who celebrates all the aspects of cartooning and all those things thereafter. Stephen says, is there any other artists you wish you could do a collaboration with? Mike, you got an answer for that? Smart Nicholas.
Wow. I mean,
Smart
all the people I would really want to collaborate with are dead. You're like, let's collaborate with Mobius. Let's collaborate with, some of those old world guys. I got a little bit of that when I was younger. And the one thing, like when I did that Ditko job with Williamson, when you work with somebody like Al, or especially somebody like Ditko, there's nothing wasted. There's no waste when you get layouts from a guy like Ditko. You know what I mean? Somebody's been doing it for 50 years, right? It's like it's so economical and to the point. So yeah, it would be fun to go back and to be able to ink more jobs by people like that, because you learn a lot. You learn a lot by working with people like that. I liked having something where the pencils by a person like that were looser, but all the important stuff was there. So you just kind of got to dress it up.
Like the Gene Colan Batman you did a few weeks back.
Yeah. I would have loved to ink his stuff, because it would have been really fun, but also really, really challenging. You'd have to really think about, and just even doing that gave me, even though I love that stuff, what Tom Palmer did to that stuff, it's a lot harder than people think.
How about you, George? Jamar Nicholas.
Jamar Nicholas. I'm so used to working by myself. And I think also maybe the question that Steven didn't ask that I'm kind of spinning around in my head in like in what capacity, right? So you maybe someone thinks, oh well, that means somebody's writing you something and you're drawing.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Or like what if you inked Bruce Timm, some Bruce Timm
Right.
comics? You know what I mean? So that's kind of where my head is going. Um, yeah,
Would you rather ink or be inked?
I'd rather. I'd rather be inked. Like I think I've finally gotten to a place where my inks aren't horrible. Like I don't like turn away in disgust when I finish a page. But I think just having somebody else like Mike and I have worked together several times on little things here and there, and Mike always does a magnificent job. He pluses everyone very well. So I mean, he's like, well. So I mean, that's kind of like an easy answer, of course, Mike Manley. But I think I would probably like to maybe ink somebody else's stuff just to see how it will come out because I have my own idiosyncrasies. How about you, Steve?
Boy, I don't know. I like you. I'm like Bill Jamar Nicholas, but I would I work by myself so often, and it's not just because I'm a control freak. It's just because that's kind of my thing. I want to draw the things I write, and I want to write for myself. That said, I did try to get a Dragon's Lair license at one point because
Wow.
I thought it would be fun to have a kind of a Don Bluthy. It would be amazing to get a Don Bluth cover. I mean, I have hired artists to do covers of my comic books, so that's kind of a collaboration. But there isn't really an artist that there's amazing artists I'd love to work with just to work with them. But it's not I couldn't say there's just one, but I wish I had a better answer for that.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool.
I would think it would be cool to see you ink like a Jeff McNally or an old Pogo strip or something like that, or like even like Tiger by Bud Blake or something, one of those.
Like a good tiger strip, yeah.
Yeah, I only had one pinup ink by Joe Sinnott, so if I could have people ink my stuff. I've had Giordano ink it. I've had Palmer ink it. Frank Giacoya passed away, so he couldn't ink stuff. I tried to get Don Heck to ink an issue of Darkhawk, but they wouldn't go for it. It would be great to draw an issue of the Fantastic Four just to have Joe Sinnott ink it. You know what I mean? It's like that would be a lot of fun to me. You
know what? Here's one. A one page illustration with a background drawn by Gerhard of Cerebus fame.
There you go.
You know what I mean? Because he would draw the backgrounds for Dave Sims' Cerebus, and that was a distinct combination. That would be amazing.
Could you still get him to do one of the?
Oh, I don't know. That would it's just popped in my head because Tristan here has a comment about mentioning Charles Vess, and it got me thinking in that direction about what a lush inking style he would have on top of layer, almost like the way Kevin Nolan changes the character of what he inks. A Charles Vess, reskinning the artwork, the pencils underneath it would be super interesting.
Yeah, some artists are some like Wally Wood was like that. It would be fun to do a job just to have Wally Wood turn you into Wally Wood. I was sharing some Hercules Unbound pages that were penciled by Garcia Lopez,
sure,
by Wally Wood, and it just looks like Wally Wood with different poses because Wally Wood's style was so strong that unless you were like Gil Kane or Jack Kirby, you had such a strong style, or Ditko, right? Like where the posing and everything is so idiosyncratic. Like no matter who inked Gil Kane, it looked like Gil Kane.
Yeah. I think it wasn't there a comic called Stalker that Ditko
Yeah.
penciled and Wally Wood inked?
Yep. I was buying that when it came out. Yeah. And they were like they were really a great team and worked together many, many times. So for me, it's like when you get to the wish list, there's all these like Silver Age guys that I grew up admiring, and some of them I got to work with, but there's others that I didn't get to work with. So for me, like when I got to ink Gil Kane on Shazam, that was like heaven. That was like that's what I wanted to do. Those are the kind of comics I wanted to work, with Buscema and Kane and Romita and Adams, and those are the artists that I grew up wanting. So I'm sure it's probably like a young person now wanting to ink Jim Lee or
Sure.
Stuart Immonen or somebody like that now.
Jamar Nicholas.
There's Jamar Nicholas. That every generation has that. You have the people that you admire and you want to, those are your heroes and those are the people you want to be like. And or you could work with, unfortunately, just about all the people that were like that for me have passed on now. So.
All right. While we've been bantering, we've gotten a lot of questions. So I don't want to initiate Ka-chow lightning round, but we need to kind of get through these questions. So, all right. Next up is, we did this one. All right. Oh, we knocked what off the list? All right. Hold on a second. All right, Leon Fan 2099 says, if someone wanted a day job that keeps them close to cartooning or illustration mentally, but without turning art into survival pressure, what kind of work would you recommend? So, go ahead. You go, Steve. Go ahead.
I was like some sort of art direction, because you'd be working with various artists. You might be inspired by different work you see day in and day out. So yeah, I'm working like an advertising agency of some kind.
You're saying commercial art?
Yeah. And in a way that puts you. So if it's like, I think the implication here is like close to cartooning, but not cartooning. So if you weren't the artist yourself, and you wanted to be close to it, I think being an art director, or working in an ad agency might be the way to go.
Or drawing caricatures at Six Flags.
Yeah, I mean that's also one.
I know people that do professional caricaturists.
Yeah, and I've been trying to gin up a couple of them for a while for the show. There's some really Instagram famous caricaturists I've been trying to get on, but they're so busy because they're booked all the time. They're like, yeah, I'm not home for 3 months. Maybe when I'm home, we can do it.
Well, there's several people in the National Cartoonist Society who that's what they do. They're caricaturists. They go to like corporate events and sit down and draw people at some, at the Ford Motor Company booth or whatever,
Yeah. That's a definite style. I was thinking less along the lines of you do art for your day job and then you have to come home and try to do art for yourself. You know what I mean? Or do comics. I think that's a rough hoe. As I've known a couple of buddies who were graphic designers who worked for like firms where they actually have like a kitchenette, with the giant jar of Smartie candy. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. They pay you to do stuff, but then they come home and it's like, bro, I don't want to look at another Illustrator file.
I don't want to stare at a screen.
Right. So my thought was not even day job. Most of the artists that I know who kind of had those kind of things had night gigs. And I share a little piece of my lore with Mike Oming, because he was a night security guard at some place for a long time, and he would bring his work to work and just draw all night. There's nobody around.
You shoot the interloper, then you go back and sit down and draw.
That's great.
So like if you could find something that you could do that would keep you awake, it also kind of just like, if you're, it sounds kind of messed up, but if your job is to just stay awake, what a great job for a cartoon.
I mean, again, this relates back to our episode on, my thing about personality, right? There's some people you could go work for the post office
Right.
during the day, get benefits, whatever, vacation, all that stuff. And then, at 5 o'clock, you hang up your mail satchel and you go home and you do your art. I know people that do that. One of my best friends next door, Chuck, was a mailman for decades, but he also was a fantastic musician and the host of the world's oldest electronic radio show on XBN out of Philadelphia every Saturday night from 1 to 6, right? So he had a day job that covered everything, but then he was a musician. That was just how he bought his soup, or his synthesizers. So it really comes down to your personality. If you can find a job that satisfies an itch and supports yourself, and then you have the bandwidth to come home and do your work that way,
Okay, let's keep it moving. Horatio, man, why can't I talk tonight? Horatio Hellpop says, when you hit procrastination or burnout, is there a personal relationship, memory, or moment that reconnects you to the work? And like, I don't want to be glib and say something like, what do you mean burnout? That's my secret cap. I'm always burnt out. But maybe not to modify Horatio's question, but maybe it's kind of like, how do you kind of get the burners going? I guess, but you know what? Maybe I don't want to like destroy his question. Like, what do you pick up that kind of gets you back in the game? Is it like maybe like an art book or that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, you can look at people that inspire you. I mean, I do that. Like I might get a whole bunch of stuff right here next to my desk that I can look at or whatever. My house is nothing but bookshelves full of inspiration. But, and I've said this before, I don't get artistic block. I sit down and work. And if I don't like it, I erase it. Because my job does not allow me to go like, well, I'm going to go 2 or 3 days in a row and not be able to. I had to sit down today and yesterday and produce a week's worth of fan. Whether I liked it or not, whether I loved what I was doing or not, the demand of the job meant that I had to sit down, even though it pinched my neck. I had to sit down and work. And that is a barrier that you go through when you become a professional who earns your living from your production. When you're an amateur or an aspiring artist, you have the luxury to say, pencils down, I'm going to go play golf. I'm going to go with my girlfriend, my boyfriend, whatever. I'm going to go play some fucking video games or whatever. I don't have that luxury. I haven't had that luxury for decades. So I find that if you don't like it or you get stuck, if you stick at it, it's like having that, everybody has had that pencil where you get to that point and it's like, what's going on? It's like a rock here. I can't draw. If you just keep, boink, that little hard piece goes away. And part of doing it is doing it. Right? Is literally just doing it. Not being precious with it, doing it. Because eventually you get into whatever your groove is, you will get into your groove. But when you hit that trouble and you go, and you can't do it if you have deadlines. that's when people get in trouble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, word up.
Yeah, I like the question. For me, the writer's block or the artist block or whatever it is, to me usually indicates an actual problem. Like it's a problem with how I'm approaching whatever I'm drawing or whatever I'm trying to do or the scene. And I find that I listen to that and take it from a different angle. Like if you're beating your head against one problem and you can't solve that and it's causing frustration, it's any other angle approaching the problem generally solves it. It's I don't that's my way at it.
Or you could go to like another panel.
That's
Right.
that's what I was going to say. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's
Either way, a different perspective, a fresh perspective, a fresh take. Yeah.
yeah. That's a big thing, especially like Mike was saying, when you live or die by deadlines, you don't. A lot of times you don't have the opportunity to just go. You know what? I'm going to go catch a movie because you're going to pay for that later, or even as we talk about how none of us on the screen on your video scope should be doing all-nighters at this point in our career.
And done is way better than perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what Joe Kubert used to say. When you have you got to turn it in, right? And it's never, and frankly, it's never going to be perfect.
Right.
Right? It's never good. You can always go back and change something, alter it, do a different take. I don't know any cartoonist who thinks that they could not go back and make improve something, right? And I think that question almost ties into that whole sort of like false narrative of artists, suffering and the muse being in the room.
I need my swoon couch.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of that misconception and misrepresentation that just is part of like all the lore and movies and the how-tos you see on YouTubes or whatever that kind of romance that stuff that I think is kind of bullshit. It's kind of bullshit.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. And as we all say here on the J&N Jamarnicles Network, the Frogurt is also cursed. All right, so let's get to our next joint here. And guys, thanks for hanging out with us tonight. This is a nice aperitif from what we've been doing, and we're going to get back into it next week. All right, next question. George Gant, read Beware of Toddler in your local newspaper. Look at all these cartoonists up in here. George says, I am planning on attending my first NCS Rubens event this year. What should I expect? Well, George Gant, let me try to give you some info. So the way the Rubens event has been going the last couple of years, it's not just you show up in a city and put on a tux and get drunk and watch people get awards. Like there's several days of NCS programming. So it's almost like now set up like a professional development workshop. So there's days of program things that you may want to go check out. There's going to be banquets and get-togethers and meetups, and also workshops and things like that leading up until Friday night where we have the awards. So if anything, you should show up being ready to commiserate with your fellow cartoonists and just have fun, man. Like, how often are you in a space where it doesn't have the same like suckiness of a bar con, right? Because this isn't like Comic-Con. You know what I mean? You're not kind of jockeying with people for like clout and all that kind of stuff. It almost reminds me, like Mike and Steve, of how like SPX used to be back at the beginning. It's like, oh, look, there's Evan Dorkin. He's hanging out with Frank Miller. They're just like having Mai Tais and talking.
Well, that was the best thing about SPX back then, was the Sunday panels, the programming, where it was not for the public necessarily. It was for aspiring creators to talk shop and like high level shop talk, pre-YouTubes.
Right. So, I mean, that's, come there with an open mind, be willing to learn, share, network, and just, let your hair down. I think you'll have a great time. See, Super D's asking questions. I said, no more questions. You guys don't follow directions. No more questions. I have like 9 questions I'm trying to get through. All right. Deckard 2019. Since it was May the 4th, Star Wars Day this week. Does the panel have any Star Wars related insights they could share?
Hold on a second, I'll be right back.
Okay. Either work related. I'm gonna take Mike off screen. Either work-related insights they could, either work-related experience or fandom experiences would suffice. Well, can I just start by saying that I hope you like my light setup, because this is very Empire Strikes Back going on in here. It's very I love you, I know energy coming out of my studio tonight. You know what? It's funny, like. I don't really have anything to share. Like, I love Star Wars like everybody else our age loves Star Wars. But like there's a little bit of a disconnect with Star Wars, especially because now I'm like a toy collector. And everybody around me is like, oh man, that Star Wars Black Series. I'm like, you know what I mean? There's something that's keeping me out of it. Even like, oh, did you watch Andor? No, I didn't watch Andor. Oh man, you gotta watch it. I know, I get it. You know what I'm saying? I love that Star Wars exists in the space that it does. I don't like the toxic fandom of Star Wars people sometimes, but I love that we can kind of like share this nerd stuff together. That's probably not a really great response to your question, Deckard. How about you, Steve?
I don't have any direct experience with it as an IP, if that's the question. I remain a Shatner and Nimoy approved artist to work on Star Trek, but I had never crossed streams with Star Wars. I will say that comic wise, I read the comics before I saw the movies. That was just how my growing up. Didn't get to go to movies very often, but so I Marvel Comics adaptations, not even adaptations, so they were sort of like pre-adaptations, since they were based on the scripts and whatever photos they had to be done long before the movie. The comics I read had a human Jabba the Hutt in it.
Oh right, yeah.
But no, I think we put a pin in this one maybe for another time when Mike's around, because having worked with Al Williamson, there's a lot of direct.
I'm back.
Hey, Mike.
What was the question?
Got any Star Wars memories?
I thought maybe with Al Williamson.
Well, actually, my old high school buddy John Knoll, who I used to be really good friends with, and we used to work on amateur stuff. He actually ended up becoming the head of ILM.
Oh wow! Well, there you go. One degree of separation.
He and his brother were two of the people, especially his brother Thomas was one of the creators of Photoshop. And I remember John with one of the very first Apple computers. He had made something that looked like a X-wing, and he was using Photoshop to map onto the spaceship some like battle damage and stuff like that. So that's my deep Star Wars connection, is that like I wanted to do comics, John wanted to work for ILM. And so during the summer, he went out and visited John Dykstra and all those. So yeah, he ended up going to USC Film School, and he built a full-size Battlestar Galactica in his basement, that had all the fiber optics. I mean, he was totally like, I wanted to be a comic book artist. He wanted to work in special effects, and that's what he did. He was the head of ILM for many years.
Well, I actually one to add. I know everyone knows Jamar from Judge Parker, but I believe he was also a Hoth rebel
That's
Wa-
right.
was it?
Yeah, I'm on Star Wars packaging too. The Jamar Chronicles are real. I've been around the world several times. There's something going on in the chat I just wanted to address. So George, kind of not to have a follow up to his question about the Rubens, but was just like, what should I be expecting? And I put in the chat that, and this is really important for us, that at the Rubens, keep your imposter syndrome back at home. Like whatever you got going on through your head, like, oh my God, how am I in this space? Oh, look, there's Jim Davis. Oh, is that Kathy Geis? Yes. Right. Yes, you're there. We're all there. So just go have fun. Like if you want to go talk to somebody, go talk to them. I couldn't tell you the insane times that somebody who I thought would never know who I was in a million years walked up to me and introduced themselves. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we're all breathing the same air. So just have fun with it.
Should you take your sketchbook?
You know what? Sure. I've seen that kind of happen in the hallways, and then there's like a really cool kind of like at the end of the weekend, kind of like a brunch where people are like really into that. Like they're just sitting around at tables and passing sketchbooks
Draw your
around.
get a Beetle Bailey head or something.
Yeah. So please bring that, but I would try to limit your fanboying because that's also something that I don't really see a lot of. People aren't like just harassing people for sketches in the middle of the thing. It's like we're like let's just chill. There's time for that. But that's a great question. It's also a thing that there's really not a lot of spaces where there's kind of like fans running around in the
Mhm.
space. You know what I mean? It's like a professional, event. So and I think that makes everybody a lot more comfortable too. That don't have to have a Sharpie in your purse. That you could just kind of like chill and be a human for a night.
Have J. Dot sign your boob.
I'll shave.
So told George to get his tux pressed. That's also a thing. Like, is it black tie? Yes, it is. The Rubens is a black tie thing. So go get your suit. They're not playing. All right, let's get back to these questions before we run out of time, guys. Thanks so much. Tristan, what up, Tristan? Tristan said, "What habits actually helped you become a lifelong artist instead of just somebody chasing motivation?" Steve, I'd love to hear how you tackle that.
Delivering what you promise.
Mm.
I think that was the thing. I think that was the thing that got me out of working for other people. And another habit was not suffering, not suffering a desk job. And also, I don't know in terms of habits, but I think it is really probably getting out of my own way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that's probably multifaceted and not good for a lightning round, but getting out of my own way and believing in myself. I don't know if that's a muscle you can practice, but you have to at some point believe in yourself. Otherwise, you won't take that step. And it does take a step to kind of say, I'm going to try this. I'm going to do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And because you're going to have to disappoint your friends and family. Say, listen, I would love to do that thing with you, but I got to do this thing. I know it doesn't make me any money yet, but I got one Patreon supporter. They're going to give me $5 every the first of every month, and I've got to make them happy. And yeah, something like that. I think believing yourself and getting out of your own way.
I want to jump on what Steve says. Yeah, I think that thin veil between doing it and not doing it is only as deep as you are willing to make it, right? There's a whole industry of YouTube bros who tell you whatever you want to hear, right? But if you're just addicted to watching the next podcast, not this one, about what you should be doing and you don't ever apply it, then what's the point? You know what I mean? Getting out of your own way. Steve Harvey had a really great, I know Steve Harvey had this really great thing about jumping off the cliff. It's an old YouTube clip that I love where he just says, at some point, you got to jump. And there's a million people who just never jump. And like, what you jump doesn't mean your parachute's going to open. You're probably going to bust your head open on your way down. But at some point, it'll open. But you'll never know unless you jump.
Yeah, and knowing that every project fails until one doesn't. But,
well,
like,
you know, you could take that question and you could ask it like, well, how do you become a musician? How do you become an actor? How do you become a baker? How do you get your black belt? How do you become a champion bowler, a champion golfer? How do you become excellent at anything? And that's through sacrifice and repetition.
Mm-hmm.
Any combination of sacrifice and repetition will eventually lead to some level of excellence. Now, whether that means that you're going to be, you know, a Jack Kirby or a Mobius or somebody, you know, 99% of people who work are never going to be that ultimate person. But, you know, I think it's the difference is with art. Art is a process. If you play music, immediately you hear, I'm making music. I'm playing Beethoven poorly.
Right.
I'm playing Beethoven a little bit better. But with drawing and painting, it's you could put 300 hours in poorly, or you can put it in 300 hours in well, right? It's like my brother is a great musician, and he teaches kids, you know, and it's like the kid who comes in and wants to learn how to play Stairway to Heaven. Did he practice? No. So the next time he plays Stairway to Heaven, because he didn't practice, he sucks, just like he did the last time, right? So I think if you want to play Stairway to Heaven, you got to practice, you know. And in art, you know, you have to practice multiple disciplines, right? Not just drawing comics, not just drawing, because drawing is thinking, right? So if you in drawing comic books or comic strips is problem solving. Somebody tells, here's a story, make it. You got to solve it. But in solving it, you have to, who knows what you're going to have to draw or how you're going to have to work to make the story work. So it's complicated. But I think if you practice smart and you're habitual, you will eventually get better. You know, most people who are amateurs cut off and level out at a certain level because they don't go beyond that comfort zone, right? And if you're studying, there's ways of studying that are effective, and there's ways of studying that are just sort of like repeating comfortable tropes, right? Like if you know you're going to draw, you've got to understand perspective. You have to understand anatomy. You know, if you want to ink, you have to understand the techniques of pen and ink. So there's different parts to it, right?
Right.
So if you're a compulsive person, it helps, right? And I've said this before. When I was a teenager, when I was 13, I decided this was going to be my job. And
I had that moment with my dad. I said, I want to be a cartoonist. He said, can you make a living at it? I said, yes. I don't know why I thought I could. I think I had only ever seen the Marvel tryout book, but for some reason he asked me, could you get it? Yes. And I had confidence, a completely unwarranted confidence.
Well, if you said, can you play for the Chicago Bulls? Yes. Right. Then your dad would go like, I'm calling the funny farm.
Right. But it's like saying, yeah, my band's going to make it. I don't know what gave me the chutzpah.
Well, I mean, I think.
Don't worry, Dad. In 30 years, I'm going to.
I'll show.
Patreon's going to come around and I'll be okay.
I'll show you all.
Just wait till my dad gets here.
Yeah.
Just wait till the internet, Papa.
I mean, I'm living proof of that. Right? I don't feel I'm an incredibly talented person. I think I was an incredibly. My fortune was being incredibly focused early, and very determined and willing to sacrifice, and being open. Because I don't think I'm a talented person. I think that I am a very well practiced person. Right? Like like you see those YouTubes where a little kid sits down at 5 o'clock at 5 years old and plays fucking Beethoven or something. Well, I was not like that.
Right.
I was shitty just like everybody else. Right? I was crappy just like everybody else. But I was very consistent and very focused on applying myself and trying to study and trying to learn. Which was not easy because, again, there was no YouTube, but I had my How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way book and whatever other book you could find on cartooning, which are good primers, but are in no way as deep as comics go. So, the modern generations are much more fortunate because, I mean, if you really want to get good enough to draw Spider-Man. I mean, it sounds simple, but all you have to do is get good enough to draw Spider-Man. Right? You don't have to be 7 feet tall and have a fantastic 3-point shot. If you were diligent enough, I believe just about anybody could probably get good enough to draw Spider-Man if they were willing to do the things, to sacrifice and to practice to do it. It's not, I don't believe there's not like a physical thing where you have to be, bench press 300 pounds or something.
Right. And that's kind of like gamer culture. There's a phrase, get good. Like the game is hard. Well, get good. There's your answer. Get good. All right.
It's like the first string guys don't cut practice.
Right. Practice. You talk about practice? All right, guys, let's try to get the rest of these questions done so I can walk my dog. Stephen Payton says, did any of you do anything special to celebrate National Cartoonist Day? Well, what I did was I talked about National Cartoonist Day, which was yesterday. I promoted it. I put it on my Facebook. And the last couple of years that it happens, people go, wait, you just made that up? Like, no, I did not make it up. It's a real thing. So, but you know what? Also, like I say, you know what? Every day is Black History Month when I'm doing stuff. Every day is National Cartoonist Day when we're in the mix. So that's what I did. How about you, Mike?
I reposted that Cliven cartoon, Make Way for a Cartoonist. And then I drew. I did what I do for a living. I sat down. I celebrated me by cartooning.
And I corrected everyone who said Happy Cinco de Mayo. and then I had tacos.
Very good. All right, our buddy from the other side of the earth, Sean Shai, representing Australia. I'm finally getting back into drawing after a break for personal issues. And one thing I always struggle with that I'd like to improve on this time around is drawing my characters in different poses and camera angles. How do you practice poses with highly stylized characters so you can stay on model, Mike Manley?
I was just talking with a friend about this the other day. So the first thing you do is select all the heads of your character that you like. Put those all together. Then you can find several sources online that show you how do you make a model sheet, right? Where you draw the lineup and you put like the 3/4 head and you draw a line across for every level of features, the eye, the head, the hairline, the ear line, the nose line. And then you make yourself a model sheet, because drawing likeness is repeating the same set of proportions from different angles. If you don't know how you construct your head, your character, whatever it is, then you can't repeat those proportions because you've never actually sat down and specifically said, the nose is this long, it goes out this far, his eyes are this way, the ears are this long, whatever. That's what every animated production does, right? You may have 30 people working on Superman. They all have to draw Superman like the model sheet. The only way they do that is they figure out how the head is constructed. You do that by creating a model sheet. So for most people, when you draw a character the first 500 times, you draw them differently. You draw them different the 50th time, then you do the 100th time, then you do the 300th time, because you're sort of figuring it out. So the thing to do is to pick the drawings you like, put them all together, and then you make a model sheet for yourself, figuring out, based upon the drawings you like, make an amalgam drawing and go, this is what my character, the eyes are here, the cheekbones are here, and you do the guy, and then you do a turn. So you can do the side view and the 3/4 view and the front view, and there's plenty of, model sheets online that show you how to, Steven Silver, people like that show you how to do that. That's what I would do. And then you figure out, oh, okay, this is, when you had the Warner Brothers making the different Bugs Bunny cartoons, you had the Chuck Jones unit, the Fritz Freeling unit, and Robert McKimson unit. And they all did Bugs Bunny, but Chuck Jones Bugs Bunny looked different than the Robert McKimson Bugs Bunny. Right? There's a slight difference in style. So that's how they did it. You wouldn't, if the guy who animated for Chuck Jones was animating on a Robert McKimson short, he had to match McKimson's style. So that's what you do. And it's kind of fun to figure out, why do I draw my character with this chin this way? Does it look good when I turn it the other way? Oh no, it doesn't look. It only looks good at this angle. So then you have to, be a little plastic surgeon.
I love it. Thank you, Mike. That was a really great in-depth answer. And thank you, Sean Shai, for asking. All right. Lightning round. Let's get this done. If Pencil to Pencil, Tristan says, if Pencil to Pencil ever launched a Patreon, would you guys ever consider uploading printable inking practice sheets or raw pencils for people to study and ink over? Sign me up. That's not a bad idea.
I have a Patreon. I just never made it public.
Well, there you have it. Thank you, Tristan.
Maybe that's something. I started it, and I do have some of that kind of stuff up there. So I guess maybe at some point I should just activate it. I sort of felt like at the beginning we didn't have enough people watching the podcast to make it worth it. So maybe it would be worth it now to do that. And maybe that's something I can work on by maybe next week. Because I actually did that. I put up a bunch of pencils and stuff like that.
Yeah, we should try that out. Cool. All right, thanks, Tristan. All right, next up, Miss Tiny, representing Warali Luigi. What would you do if your drawings would come to life and try to take over the world? What I hope that I could get some of the nation's resources and riches, or either that or be prosecuted. Steve, you would take a stab at that?
Oh, I don't. I had no idea what this. I don't know. I feel comfortable. My characters would be incompetent, and we're in safe hands then.
All right, cool. Thank you. All right, I'm going to keep blowing through these. All right, this I'm gonna. All right, let me do these two, and then I'll try to do the next one. Tristan also says, I met Jeff Smith and Charles Vest with the T. I like that. Charles Vest. I like that. Because they were collaborating on a trilogy tour book, I believe. Yes. Anyone you'd like to go on tour with? From my book angle, I think it would be fun to go on tour with my buddy Kazu Kibuishi, who does Amulet, and
Mhm.
also Jerry Kraft. I think that would be a fun little three band NBA Jam team. I think that would be pretty cool. What about you, Steve?
I think anyone from that trilogy tour. I think there was also Linda Medley and Stan Sakai was on that. I
Mm,
think my buddy Tom Zoller. We're practically on tour.
mm,
Uh, uh, we sit up next to each other often at conventions, and David Peterson, another, the genre, the material works well together. He's a great part of one of the things you really like is when you're table, it's not just the quality of their work and their abilities as a cartoonist, it's also their skills as a neighbor, as a wing person who can
mhm.
uh you know know when they need to step back a little bit to let a transaction occur,
Right.
that sort of thing. But yeah, those would be my choices.
Okay. All right. Cool. I'm not asking you, Mike, because I'm saving these last ones for you.
Oh,
All right. Sean Chai asks, are there any artists you really admire but wouldn't want to work with because you feel like it wouldn't be a good fit? I don't know. Is that a dirty laundry question? uh,
hmm.
Steve Conley.
Steve, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, there's would you not work together? You would not work stylistically, or you would not work personality wise, because those are two different questions.
Yeah, the personality thing. It's just you'll be fighting in the parking lot. That's
Yeah.
yeah.
So I don't, and I think if there was somebody who I didn't get along with personally, I wouldn't want to work with them. Even if I liked their work, they would
Right.
be like, well, why would I want to do that? You know?
Right. Right.
Um, so no, I the people that I like to work with are people that I'm friends with, because then it's, like when I would make my buddy, my old almost high school buddy, John Hebing. I love John's work. And so when I would ink his work, it's fun, or like inking Brett's work or inking Jamar's work. When you ink work with a friend, it's like extra fun because you know that person,
Hmm.
you know. Um, I inked Gil Kane,
Mhm.
who I love his work.
Oh,
Meeting him was not fun.
Sean Shea says, I meant stylistically or workflow wise, is what.
I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty much open to working with anybody's style, I think. And I
Chris,
have worked on
would you
so many different things stylistically.
I'm trying to think of a style opposite, like Chris Ware, like imagining
Oh, like
that
something that's so like
jeweler's loop. Yeah,
rigid, right? Yeah, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
but it might be fun to try it,
yeah, right,
Mhm,
for
mhm.
sure.
because I've done all kinds of different cartooning styles, right? And some you like, and some you don't. I mean, if you go to my Instagram and scroll through it, you see like a zillion things that I've done,
Right.
all kinds of different styles, some more fun than others. So I don't think I don't think any style is beyond you at least trying it, and then you could always say like, well, I really didn't like, you know, doing that style. It wasn't fun. But I think the main thing was the personality, So, and Gil Kane was noted for not being very nice or kind to inkers. So the fact that he wasn't very nice or kind to me when I met him sort of fits fits with his modus operandi. It didn't stop me from you know loving inking his work, or still enjoying his work. You know, but sometimes, yeah, you can meet a person whose work you admire, but you don't really like them as a person. I mean, that's just human nature.
Thank you. All right, Mike. These last ones are for you. I am going to challenge you to keep it quick. All right, so we can be done. Uh, but they're good questions, and I'm glad we left them for the end. Super D, Rosebuds. one of our new favorite strips in paper. Any advice on speeding up handling the sketch thumbnail section of dailies? It feels like the slowest part of the process for me and would love to find ways to speed it up and get further ahead. What a great question.
Well, I think there's a couple ways you could handle it. One, when I'm on deadline, I find that it's like, I liken it to like baking. So if you batch it, like you do all your, you lay out all your strips, then you pencil all your strips, then you ink all your strips, where if you're going back and forth, like I'm penciling and then I'm laying out, then I'm penciling and then I'm inking. And the other thing is to challenge yourself to finish more in the inking, do more drawing in the inking and less penciling. Like you can pencil very tightly, which depending upon how I'm working and whether I'm working with my background assistants, right? If I'm penciling a background for my assistant to ink, I have to pencil it tighter than I pencil it for myself. So if you in general, if you notice, this is something I heard from my friends like Ricardo and some of the European guys. Americans tend to pencil tighter because our system was you had a penciler and an inker and the whole. They get their pencil just enough tight to ink. So maybe if you separate it, like do all the one thing and then do all the other thing, then it's just like you're just, if you're icing all the cakes, right? You're just doing that. You're icing all the cakes. It's easier than it's like, oh, now I'm going to think about storytelling. And now I'm going to think about layout. That's like a different gear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good answer.
Well, Mike,
yes,
here. So how long does it take you to do a week's worth of strips?
That's the next question, Steve. You jumped ahead.
Oh, I was.
And the next question, I'm sorry, Steve, to step on you. Then Super D asked, this may get closed, but I do have a question for Mike, also doing a daily strip. Do you only do 1 week of strips per week, or do you sometimes do more than that? How long does it take to do a week of strips? That was the last question, I think.
Sorry, should be.
I have done a week of Judge Parker in a day, which is a long day and it's not fun. But I've gotten, it's like I did a week of the Phantom in 2 days.
Wow.
Because it had to be, and since I was tight, I fed them. When I got the first 3 done, I sent it so that the colors could start. Right? Because the Phantom has more production because they send it overseas, all these different. I don't understand, but that's just what they tell me. So in general, you never want your editor to know how fast you can work if you have to, because then they expect it. Well, that's how fast you work. Why can't you do 5 weeks in a week? Damn it!
Mm-hmm.
I have at one point I think done 3 weeks in a week. If you could do 3 a day, and I generally work at least 6 days a week, but sometimes I've worked 7, you could do 21 strips in a week. Again, but that depends upon what's in the strip. Because like the Phantom is way harder to draw than Judge Parker. Because every strip, like I said in the beginning, is reference. Right? And a lot of times Judge Parker's just talking heads. So if it's just talking heads, heads are much quicker than drawing a guy riding a horse and you're drawing like a military jeep and looking up Learjets and what the inside of a Learjet looks like, and all that. Some weeks you got to look at what Guantanamo Bay, Cuba looks like, right? And you got to try to find an angle so you can have some reference. And then if you're using that reference, there's reference for me, and then there's reference for my background person, right? Which was Liang, and now it's Mimi. So what works for me won't work for her, because she's not as familiar with the strip is, so I can't leave a question for her that only I could answer, right? So there is no, you know, it's whatever the deadline requires, basically, is the short answer. But yeah, I could draw a week of the Judge faster than the Phantom, unless of course every day is them driving in a car across a bridge, being tailed by a drone, you know, all that kind of stuff. That's just like pencil mileage. So if you're drawing your strip, yeah, you could probably draw a day ahead pretty quickly.
Mhm. All right, cool. You did it. We did it, y'all. Pencils down. We did it. Thank you so much, and thank you, chat, for riding with us. I know when we do these, it's kind of like, I don't know, kind of like warm up time. Like the first 30 minutes of the show, people are just kind of like, cool. And then at the last 15 minutes, we're like, oh, wait, I had a question. So, like, if you can front load when we have an Ask the Cartoonist, if you think about your question once we post that we're having the show, ask in advance. What a great way to start the show. Hey, we've got a bunch of questions that we're going to get right into rather than us having the tap dance.
Or we can even get samples of stuff to show.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. Yeah. So, like, let's do some prep, right? Just, let us know ahead of time. Even on the YouTube channel, on the community tab, I say, hey, this is what we're doing. Put it there. We have plenty of options. You don't have to wait until the very last minute when we go live. But guys, I want to thank you so much. We're going to get out of here. Thank you to my co-host with the co-most. And thank you guys and our filthy cartoonist chat for all your great questions.
And maybe I'll between now and the next episode, I'll activate the Patreon.
All right. Yeah. And we'll put that in the community chat too, and also on our Facebook page, just so everybody sees it. Guys, our mascot, Dr. Paulie Walnuts, the Sorcerer Supreme. You see him in his velour tracksuit and his winged hair, and he goes, "Hey, Steve Conley, I heard Quasimodo predicted all of this." And what he predicted is that you people, we are in the end game, so it's imperative before we go to that cold dark night to wash those Kirby hands. That's right. Eternity said, "Don't be a Johnny come lately."
Oh,
oh, all right, guys. Thanks so much.
Oh,
T. Oh, to the snap. Oh, all right, guys. Have a good night. Bye.